There's a gentleman called Cyrus Jirongo who one time said, if a person, you see, I follow, he said that if we had a thinking government and you planted a billion trees, cypress trees, or cedar trees, because, you know, the demand for timber in China is insatiable.
Yeah,
so if we had planted these things, like say when President Uhuru became president on day one, in 10 years we'd have 1 billion trees. Even if you sold one for as cheap as 10,000 shillings, which is very little, you would have 10 trillion. We would pay our debt just from selling trees that we planted when someone became president.
Thank you very much. Welcome again to Savage Politics. Let me first of all take this opportunity to thank you and thank our viewers who listen to what we discuss here. It's open politics. It's not an interview. We just converse, really to know the status of politics in our country, in Africa, and even internationally. Let me take this opportunity, my dear viewers, to thank you greatly and also introduce my guest today. My guest today is a renowned lawyer. He does not practice at the High Court, but he runs a mediation firm. He's an accredited mediator. The firm is known as Kilimani Mediation Center, resolving disputes, and most of you have heard the Chief Justice talking about it, resolving disputes outside the court, but of course with a legal background, being a lawyer himself. His name is Fanya Mambo Kinuthia.
Yes, thank you very much.
Fanya Mambo is not a street name given. Actually, my brother here in his ID, the name is Fanya Mambo Kinuthia.
Yes.
Do things Kinuthia. We have to translate into English. Karibu sana.
Thank you. I've been telling people, and I tell them many times, if you don't do you salimia me like Gen Zs, you send a shilling to my phone, then you'll actually confirm that my name is Fanya Mambo.
Yes. No, it's a good way of
salamia.
Thank you. Welcome.
Thank you very much.
Yeah. Today, I want us just to discuss generally on what is happening in our country, and particularly discussing the role of opposition in government and why the opposition that we really wanted to rely on has at a very critical point decided to join government. Your views, your thoughts, and also they did not just join government. I remember even during Nusumukate, where it was official, it is something that we even crafted a law in parliament to legalize the marriage between the opposition and the then government. This one is an interesting one, where the top cream of the main opposition party in Kenya, the top cream of ODM, the two vice party leaders, the chairman of the party, the minority leader in the National Assembly, all leaves their party to join government. And again, you look at the portfolios that was offered to them. Look at my friend John Badi, who was made the Minister for Finance, meaning he's in charge of not only the taxes collected by KRA, meaning KRA is under him, Central Bank is under him, all banks are under him, anything financial is under him. And given that those of you who understand what government is, the key components of a government is the finance portfolio and security portfolio. If you have the two, you have the government. This is a situation where a government that won with majority, it has majority in parliament, it has everything majority, decides, let me offload one of the most critical, actually half of the government, what makes government function, let me offload it to the opposition. I want you as a lawyer maybe to dissect this, look at it in detail, and try and explain to our viewers why you think such a step was taken, and whether it is retrogressive or whether it is helping to bring peace in the country. And whether the demonstrations by Gen Z were violent or other people ostensibly sponsored came in to turn peaceful demonstrations into a violent demonstration, and also look at our history and tell us the origin of violence in politics in this country, and really whether the current government has an in-depth grasp of hooliganism in Nairobi, hooliganism in Mombasa, hooliganism in Western, hooliganism in Nyanza, whether they really had a grasp of who are the key players when you want to turn Kakamega into chaos, you want to turn Kisumu into chaos, you want to turn Nairobi into chaos, Mombasa into chaos. Obviously, they are key players, those that are the bosses of the goons that normally are deployed to cause havoc.
Thank you very much. I think you started by speaking about government in opposition and opposition in government. And I think to start, I would like to see who is the leader of opposition in Kenya. My clear submission is that the Deputy President, Rigathi Gachagua, has now become the leader of official opposition in government. In fact, I have been seeing him. He's an amphibian. He's in government and he's also out of government. He's this guy who he lives in water and he lives on land, because at night they accuse him of sponsoring JZs. They accuse him of having night meetings to try and topple the government. And he does come out clearly. I remember one time the president made a press briefing in Nairobi and the deputy made his in Mombasa, and he painted the intelligence of this country in a very bad light. Not in a bad light, in a true light. I think he's a truthful man to some extent. So he said the truth about our intelligence bodies and how they are doing things. But even when there was a lot of demolition of houses within specific areas in Nairobi, it is the deputy president who came and said that his community is being attacked. So we have a very amorphous and amphibian kind of relationship, because you are at some point leader of official opposition and at some point you're the deputy president of the Republic of Kenya. Mm-hmm. But let us talk of the coming of ODM into government. Who is William Ruto? William Ruto is a man who believes in one-party rule. Mm-hmm. He's a person who believes in emasculating political parties. He started immediately he was declared president, before even the court made the ruling. He had swept all the parties from the northern region, and they were being said now they are no longer Azimio, they've joined Kenya Kwanza. Then he would go and inject a bad needle into Jubilee with Kanini Kega and Sabina Chege ruining Jubilee. That was his craftsmanship. And then immediately that is done, he comes now and says, oh, I'm done with all parties, I'm only left with Wiper and ODM. So how do you finish ODM? It is not really the person of Mbadi he was interested in. It is Mbadi, the chairman of ODM. It is the two deputies of ODM. I can tell you, even the leader of minority in Bunge, he was not picked just because he was leader of minority. He was picked, one, because officially he's like the opposition leader. And he was also picked because Opiyo Wandayi holds a party position. And so the whole idea was to weaken and finish the oldest political party, which he has now been able to do, because Orengo has been left making noise on the other side and trying to figure out what has just happened to their party. Mm-hmm. So ODM is never going to be the same again after what has happened right now, because the key leaders of the party have been taken into government. And of course, once in a while, they'll be told, hey, there is this contract. Tell us something about ODM, or we give this contract to someone else. And these people went there because one of the other reasons they went is because they are hungry. So they will reveal a lot of secrets for ODM if ODM does have any secrets, and they are going to weaken the party from within, because in as much as they are expected to resign their party positions, their allegiance is still within ODM. And their own supporters are wondering, do we follow our leader now that he's joined government, or do we remain in ODM and do we remain in opposition politics? The leader of official opposition, Raila Amolo Odinga, what does he become? Does he become an amphibian party leader. Sometimes he's the leader of ODM, and sometimes he's the leader of the ODM that is part of government. Which ODM is he going to lead? So it's a very difficult position for him. But also, having said that, I would like to say William Samoei Ruto is also very clever. You asked a question about why he gave them the key dockets. William Ruto is looking at 2027. And he wants to come and say, hata hii finance, yule mtu alileta mambo mbaya ni Mbadi. Huyu Mbadi ndio alileta bad policies. Yeye ndio alikuwa in charge of finance. Na Mbadi ni wa wapi? Si Mbadi ni Mjaluo, si ni wa huku kwenyu. So he will go to Nyanza very comfortably. And that's why, think about it. The top person in KRA for a long time was Kikuyu. The top person at the Ministry of Finance was Kikuyu. The person in charge of the head of budget at Parliament was Kikuyu. The head of finance committee is Kikuyu. So what does he do? He wants to wait, and his plan was very clear. He would have waited for 2027, would have come in Mount Kenya and said, I made bad financial decisions there. The whole sector that is involving finance in this country, who was in charge? It is your people. So he's going to take and remove himself and above. Like now, the other problem we've had in this country is an issue of electricity. William Samoei Ruto wants to make token expensive. He wants to make electricity very expensive. He wants to increase taxation on electricity. What's the best way to do? Is to get a person from the opposition stronghold and put him in charge of energy. But the people who are consuming the money coming in the ministry, you know, they all speak government language. If they go, they can actually decide to use mother tongue, because look at the head of the main parastatals that are for electricity and power generation, Kenyan, Ketrako, all of them. They can literally go into a boardroom and decide Kiswahili is not necessary, English is not necessary. We can speak in mother tongue. So you have a guy there from an opposition stronghold being told he's the one in charge of horrible decisions in the energy sector, but the consumers of the money that come into energy sector are speaking government language, and they are making decisions in a language that some of us in this room would never understand. So that's William Samoei Ruto for you. So he takes the key ministries where he feels, I am being blamed for these ones. And then he makes sure the beneficiaries of those ministries are his people. And the people taking the bad bit and the burden of those ministries are the people from opposition strongholds. And I can tell you in 2027, he will pull that card out. He will come and say, Nani alikuwa in charge of energy? He will not mention his people who speak government language. He will talk of the top people in charge of energy. So this is a very well calculated political move. I've always said, William Ruto is not a good leader. Give it up to him. But he's a good politician, and he's very thorough, and he's playing politics with these people, and they have not gotten it. You asked about the peaceful demos in Nairobi. I must say it's a very sad affair, because we saw government creating chaos in its own country. We saw people saying we are going to protect our property. I saw an MCA from Eastlands, and I don't want to mention his name because I'll give him too much airtime that is not even worth, coming on national TV and saying we are going to protect our businesses, and literally paying goons from his old Range Rover and saying that these goons are supposed to come and terrorize people in Nairobi and terrorize the Gen Zs because they think the Gen Zs are the problem. Gen Zs are not the problem. Nobody elected Gen Zs to power. Gen Zs do not make any policy. They are not the source of the finance bill. We all know who is the source of the finance bill. So these people who have done that, and we saw some even being mobilized from City Hall and being funded and being given money outside City Hall and living with clubs and sticks. And I asked myself, Article 37 of the Constitution, when it speaks about freedom of assembly and the right to picket and to do all those things, had never envisioned that somebody would come with a stick, with a djembe stick to a demonstration, and the police would look at him. And then someone will come with an iPhone, and the police would clobber the man with an iPhone and a flag and leave behind the guy carrying a djembe stick, because the djembe stick guy is mobilized by the same government to fight the same young people. This for me is a very horrible situation. And I think if we are to file a petition in court against the policemen, it would be on this particular issue, that we have records of young men carrying weapons to demonstrations, being ignored by policemen. And we have records of beautiful young girls carrying a flag, drinking water, and a phone being beaten. We have evidence of young people being shot from rooftops who carried only a flag and an iPhone. But the horrible goon who carried a fighting stick walked freely into town and left town. There's a supermarket that was looted for 3 hours, continuously. Guys would loot, go home if you live in Kayole, and come back and still find others looting, and you continue looting. They carried a lot of stuff. The police were not available there. But they were available at the pressings of parliament to shoot and pour the brains of young people on tarmac because they have said no to a finance bill. This is the kind of administration we are dealing with. It's a very insensitive one. It's a member of parliament who tells you, I will go to parliament, I will pass this law, whether you like the law or not, I will pass it. And if you not allow me to pass it, I'll procure tear gas, I'll procure guns, I'll procure bullets, and I'll beat you into submission for me to pass this law.
This is very interesting and extremely deep and touching, where the government is the thug,
yes, it is,
against its own citizens. We know the head of government today, William Ruto. You can blame him for anything, but can you blame Ruto for knowing the gang leaders of thugs in Nairobi? Can you blame William Ruto for knowing the gang leaders in Kakamega, in Kisumu, and in Mombasa, who, in your view, politically, because I don't think Ruto has that capacity. He might have capacity in Rift Valley, but in towns, we have had politics before. We have seen demonstrations in our republic. And of course, the people who take the front row are the same people who then turned and became government and were harassing the innocent young fellas who are just expressing their deep feelings and concern about a bill they felt is hurting a country. Who really would you think was responsible for these goons?
People make errors of commission. People also make errors of omission. President William Ruto made a serious error of omission. We have seen people being abducted left, right, and center. Why have we not seen any goon leader or any person who was carrying a stick to fight others being abducted? I'm yet to wake up one morning and see images of a man who had been on TV beating up Gen Zs having been abducted, and they are saying they've been looking for him. The government is not looking for those ones. It is looking for the innocent young people who had a flag and water, who said we fight this administration. I think it is very easy for us to sit here and apportion blame. I have always said, people would like to say it's Raila Odinga, people would like to say. I don't want to say that, and I'll tell you why. When Kenyans voted, the court said that William Samoei Ruto is president. It therefore places a responsibility on him to protect human life and property. So when people come and start blaming Raila for the destruction of human life and property, I ask them, in your right mind, who is your president? Who is in charge of the police? Who is in charge of intelligence? If we have police available to protect State House and fortify it and make it look like a military barracks, why do we not have police to protect the Gen Zs from the goons? I think from where I sit, I do not want to blame anybody in opposition for what has happened. It goes back to government. The person sitting in a position of responsibility is the person who should have woken up and said, in a country where I am head of state, no young man will raise up with a stick and beat up another young person. So it is incumbent upon the head of state to protect every young person who wanted to do a demonstration. I will not look to the left or right and place that responsibility on any other person, because constitutionally, if the head of state had said it will not happen, I can assure it would not have happened. So let us go back to who holds the mantle. It is President William Samoei Arap Ruto. And DCI, I always challenge you, please, please, instead of abducting people left and right and center who are being seen to be fighting this administration, Why don't you first abduct those people who've been beating young people for exercising their political rights? For once, tuone mtu alishikwa na tukaambiwa alikuwa na jembe stick and they were beating young people. So whether these demos were organized, I have had names being flouted. I've had few names. In fact, there was a time they took videos of a politician in Nairobi and they were showing his house and they were saying goons had gone there to make noise about the fact that they were not paid. My eyes are not there. My eyes are on the commander-in-chief of the Republic of Kenya, and it is incumbent upon him to protect life and property. And any president who is unable to protect lives to start with and property can resign. It is okay, it's an option. But don't be president in a situation where young people in your country are being brutalized, and then we are looking for scapegoats and people. I can tell you, nobody in this country would do that without the consent of those politicians at the top. So let us focus and say, it is incumbent upon the head of state to protect the lives of Kenyans.
Tell me, in a structuring government, it is clear that those who did it understood that absolute power corrupts absolutely, and hence came up with a structure where we have an opposition, and the opposition is supposed to play the role of checks and balances to ensure that they put the government on its toes to do what is correct. In our case, we find an opposition with a spirit of compromise, that let us join the party, in my view, and the perception that has been created. Tell me, is the opposition? Do they believe that they were voted for by Kenyans for them to get to that level, and that what is apportioned to them, they're supposed to play their rightful role? We know the government is not playing its rightful role. We know the demonstrations are because people are upset with government. But the really people who needed to take the lead in ensuring that the government does not get to the level where it has gotten is the opposition. What are your remarks? What are your views on the opposition in Kenya?
Number one, I'll start by providing a solution. Fellow Kenyans, we don't have an opposition in the country. So I'm asking Kenyans of goodwill, identify an office somewhere within town or wherever. Give me that office. I want you to bring every document you have, anything about something you feel is going wrong in government, and allow me to put up a pay bill there. I'll offer myself to become leader of opposition. I have been fearless. I've been doing it for free. Now just give me an office, Kenyans, wherever you are. No, give me an office. I'm very serious. Give me an office and a small car. I don't even need a very big car. Yes. A small Japanese car, give me an office, and give me one security person. Then bring all everything. If you get something happening wrong in the Ministry of Water, bring. Ministry of Health, bring. I will always look for media. I'll invite them for a briefing 3 times a week, and I will tell them where the government is going wrong, because it gets to a point where someone has to offer themselves.
Actually, the government and they would have been opposition, yes, where they are going wrong. So because now they are one.
Yes, now that amphibian outfit we are calling a government, that is a mix of everything. It's a very bitter thing you swallow. It's not hot, it's not cold, it's not sour. It's just a very bad concoction to take to the mouth. And so I'm offering myself. So before I even talk about the opposition, go organize, tell me, Fanya Mambo, there's an office here, good. We will start tomorrow morning. I'll drop everything else and become leader of official opposition in Kenya and do it without even a legal provision for it. I'm fearless. Bring me everything. You want me to expose? As long as the documentary evidence is good, I'll be exposing it 3 or 4 times a week. So there's no opposition in this country. What we now have is they are siphoning something from a pot together. See, so it's opposiphon. They are just drinking together. Opposiphon. They are siphoning. And they will siphon this country dry. And they do not mean well for you. They do not mean. I remember one Ali Hassan Joho. Mimi nimtafute William, mimi nimtafute Ruto, nitamtafuta nini mimi Ruto. Today, when he was appointed, I didn't hear left or right. He woke up and immediately took up. And I was telling someone the other day, William Samoei Ruto is like a man who was given a post-dated check by Raila Amolo Odinga. That time Raila was going to Dubai. He gave him a post-dated check and told him, I'm going to Dubai. When I come back next week, I want you to bank this check. And then when you bank this check, we can see, you'll get the fruits from the check. The check had the 4 names of the 4 guys who've become minister. Immediately, Raila Odinga left the country. I don't even think he had landed in Dubai. William Samoei Ruto did not wait. He banked the post-dated check immediately. And we had names. And so there was a lot of confusion. That's how it happened. And so I feel that, yes, we are in a bad position. We do not have an opposition. You cannot be in government and be in opposition at the same time. Even Rigathi Gachagua is confused about his position. My strong submission is, give me an office, enable me, I'll do it for free for Kenyans. At least until you decide what you want your opposition leader to look like.
So dear Kenyans, you heard it clearly. We do not have opposition, we have opposiphoning.
Yes, opposiphoning.
And that Fanya Mambo is offering himself. He will do the work, he doesn't require a salary. He only requires a small Japanese car. He only requires a small office.
I'll hang a pay bill there. You can send 10 bob, 20
yes.
bob. It will get me going.
And he'll do the work.
Yeah.
So we have opposiphoning, not opposition. So really, essentially, in broader terms, we are back to a one-party state.
Yes.
In what has happened, because really, Azimio, the key party, was ODM. Its strength was ODM. In my view, Azimio doesn't exist anymore, because you talk to the likes of Martha, the likes of Kalonzo, Eugene, including myself, who was part of Azimio. We feel it is opposiphoning the way you are saying. We don't know what is being siphoned. They seem to have a common pot where there is a murija, everybody is pulling out of it. But we still have a country. Kenya will be there with the opposiphoning government or without them. Kenya will have to be there. What is important today is, where is this country headed? And what are the measures, a common Kenyan, because really, the people we are talking about do not have power that belongs to them. Yes. They are exercising donated power. The really power is with the people of the Republic of Kenya. What will you propose to a common Kenyan who really might not understand the power he has, what he needs to do to ensure he does not lose his country completely?
I think number one is to the head of state. Please, there is an office. I think we need to drop a pin location. It's a place called Harambee House. Mm-hmm. There's an office there. It's called Office of the President. Mm-hmm. It's supposed to be occupied by him. Mm-hmm. And then there's one opposite that one. It's supposed to be occupied by the Deputy President. Mm-hmm. I think people need to come out of campaign land cruisers. Mm-hmm. They are always on the campaign trail. Mm-hmm. Mwai Kibaki for some time sat in that office and he worked. Mm-hmm. He sat in State House and worked. Mm-hmm. And his work we see and celebrate to date. Mm-hmm. Nothing is going to be achieved from the top of land cruisers. Mm-hmm. It's going to divide the country more. It's going to create, who is head of state who wants a country in a constant and perpetual campaign mode? Mm-hmm. I have seen what is happening in Mount Kenya. And Rigiji, you are my friend. You know, I have to talk to you. You know, good goodness, why am I even calling you my friend, and you know how many times I have fought you and I'll continue fighting you? Why do you allow the president to come and introduce you in Mount Kenya? Because it's happening every day. When the president comes, he says, na sasa tuko na makamu yangu ya rais, then he introduces Rigiji. Rigiji, then I think you need to talk to your boss and tell your boss, from now moving forward, what I want you to do is that even on Madaraka Day, you speak first and then you introduce me. It cannot be that when you come to Mount Kenya, you introduce me to the people, you speak before me. Mm-hmm. But on Jamhuri Day and Madaraka Day, there's a protocol, I speak before my boss. Mm-hmm. So you have to be the person bringing the president to Mount Kenya. It cannot be the other way around. Although you also know Mount Kenya is not with you. Now, having said that, what will Kenyans do? Number one, you cannot be perpetually on demonstration mode. Mm. You still need to feed your families and you need to eat. Mm. So be constantly vigilant. I mean, I've said there's a lot you can do from your cell phone. You just need to realize that your MP is not doing something, and you all decide as a constituency you are going to send a message to his phone. Even if he changes 100 times, continue sending him messages. Let us be eternally vigilant between now and when there's going to be another election. then from there we can be able to remove these people. Because, again, I wouldn't tell Kenyans, go on the streets perpetually. It's tiring, it's expensive, it affects other livelihoods and so on. But I feel that let us be eternally vigilant, let us be consciously aware of what is due to us. And no leader is doing you a favor. None whatsoever. Those positions belong to members of the public, and they have a right to hire and fire whoever they feel should be hired or fired.
When you take revenue of a country and hands it over to opposition, somebody needs to think outside the box. There must be something greater that you are focusing on than just handing it over to them. You've talked about, let us wait and remove these people. We work, we earn our living, but prepare to remove them when the next election comes. When I look at what is happening to Mount Kenya, do you sense any disfranchising of the larger Mount Kenya?
Oh, yes.
Secondly, when you look at the position offered to Western Province, to Nyanza, and to Coastal Province, are you seeing any replica of 2007? Give me your comments.
First and foremost, thank you very much. The Pentagon is back. For those who are very young, Pentagon was something that had been crafted that time. They were saying it's 42 against 1. The 1 was Gema, the 42 was the other tribes of the country. Pentagon is back. Look at cabinet. In Mount Kenya, he comes and looks for people who cannot call for a meeting of 200 people. Some of the people who were appointed to cabinet from Mount Kenya, we did not know their names before their appointment. And they will finish before we can even remember their names. Right now, I can't remember some of their names. Apart from Alice Wahome and Kithure Kindiki, we can't remember the bulk of them. When he was choosing Joho, he knew there was Munya in Mount Kenya. When he was choosing Joho, he knew there was Mutahi Kagwe. When he was choosing Joho, he knew there were strong pillars in Mount Kenya. Men and women who would have galvanized the mountain behind them. But he did not want that. He wanted the mountain as a disenfranchised, leaderless outfit. And then coursed with a very strong leader, Ali Hassan. You have to give it up to him. Joho is a strong mobilizer. He's charismatic. He's good with people's skills. He's a good politician. Look at Western Province. The Bungoma axis, I think, is gradually sweeping away from Wetangula, if he ever had a hold on it, and is very fast moving towards George Natembeya. And the president was like, I can look for Natembeya later, but for now I need the Kakamega axis. And he knew Oparanya wields a lot of influence with the Kakamega axis, and he delivered to ODM, give it up to him. So what does the president do? He looks for the best in all the other regions and puts them in cabinet. Then he looks for the weakest and the least charismatic, the least people, the people who have the least following in Mount Kenya. And he then lies to us that he's given us 7 cabinet posts as Mount Kenya people. But these are clerks in government. We will never get to hear them. They are spineless. They don't have a voice. And therefore he knows them. And then the other person who appeared, and I don't know who told them that Rigiji can unite the mountain, who appeared like he would have been the leader of the mountain, Mount Kenya, Rigiji, is being threatened with impeachment. And so that every time he's about to speak, he's told, we can remove you. We have the numbers. Now ODM is with us. So he's in a very precarious position. So the whole idea is to make Mount Kenya very weak, to make their votes appear not. And I know they want to impeach Rigiji for sure. And I know they want to put Kithure Kindiki for sure. And then use the next 3 years to manage the politics. Why? So that for the first time, the Gema does not vote with Meru. If you take away 2 million votes from Gema, then Mount Kenya votes become useless and inconsequential. But I wish to tell them that they are looking in the wrong place. The leader of Mount Kenya will not be in the people they are seeing at the political helm out there. We are coming up, and we shall be very strong. And we will unite our people. But I am not in that tribal cocoon of thinking as a Mount Kenya leader. I am thinking as a Kenyan who will be voted across the country, but a person who also hails from Mount Kenya. So let it be very clear to them that in as much as he's planning for 2027, there is a new tribe in Kenya called Gen Z. This new tribe, by the way, go and look at the IBC register. The people between the age of 18 to the age of 40 are 16 million out of the 22 voters.
22 million voters, yes.
Yeah, 16 million are between 18 and 40. If those people decide to vote for one of their own, even these amphibian government will have no place. Yeah. So the thing is, let them be very careful. Even if you deny Gen Zs their IDs, I am already telling you the voters register as it is right now is in favor of a younger presidential candidate. And whoever comes out and comes out strongly stands a very, very, very good chance of becoming president of the Republic of Kenya and removing that whole crop that Kenyans are tired of.
Gen Z are leaderless, faceless, tribeless, partyless. Somebody offering leadership and coming up with a strategy to put these young people together, to behave together, because politics is local. You see what the local people are doing, and generally you go in that particular direction. As much as the young people of our republic are helping us to become a nation, not a group of communities pretending to be a nation. They're trying to create a genuine nation. One, they are unable to come up with clear leadership. And of course, if the leader came up today, I can tell you, anything under the sun will be done to ensure that that leader is dealt with. Either plant the spirit of compromise in him, or do the abductions and other crazy things that have been happening.
Rivayala.
Or end up in Rivayala and all those issues. Now, this is where we are. You cannot completely rule out the old thinking, the old way of doing things, as much as we are at the crossroad, getting into now a Kenya owned by a new generation. Understanding the history of those that are managing power today, both opposition and government. What should you, myself, and other Kenyans who desperately want one country, who desperately want leadership, who has intent of building a country, other than looking at a country and the people's revenues, taxes collected, as a means of business, what should we start doing today to ensure that whatever formula has been put in place, defranchising the country, coming back with the 41 communities versus one, that those things, those old way of getting into power for other purposes other than providing leadership and looking for greatness, that I did this for my country, and therefore I'm a great man, I'm honored, I'm remembered the Mandela way, the other great leaders way. What should we start doing today?
Number one, the Gen Zs have already started doing it. They said in a household there are two parents, and maybe even one is dead. And then they have 5 children or 4.
Yes.
So you can tell where the majority are. You know, people think that it's a lot of statistics. All you need to do is to look at home.
Yeah.
How many young people are in the house? And how many old people are in the house? Who are the majority? And then these young people are saying they will try to sweet talk their parents and persuade them to vote in a particular in 2027. But they also say that if their parents do not listen to them, they'll hide their IDs. So I told them this is not a very good thing to hide your parents' IDs.
Deny them the right to
exercise
denying
their right to exercise their right, and they brought you to life. But at least the initial state, they said we will talk to our parents. We will tell them why we don't. And they even said something that I thought was also outrageous. They said, Mama Mboga na mtu wa boda boda hasijaribu kukaribia polling station because those are the people who've messed this country up. They don't know what they vote for. They said that they want intelligent people at polling stations. And I think, again, I told them, let's not use that divisive language of saying Mama Mboga and mtu wa boda boda asikaribia polling station. But let us use a language of saying that before you go to a polling station, I think it's a high time you started internalizing what you're going to do and what is the power of your ballot. And not to be very myopic to just see at your nose, you need to see beyond. What are these things we can do? There's a gentleman called Cyrus Jirongo who one time said about, and I took this up, he once spoke about pine trees And Jirongo said that if a person, you see, I follow, he said that if we had a thinking government and you planted a billion trees, cypress trees, or cedar trees, because, you know, the demand for timber in China is insatiable.
Yeah,
so if we had planted these things, like say when President Uhuru became president on day one, in 10 years we'd have 1 billion trees. Even if you sold one for as cheap as 10,000 shillings, which is very little, you would have 10 trillion. We would pay our debt just from selling trees that we planted when someone became president. I think I got him right.
Thank you.
So that is one thing that would make this country a lot of money. When I had the appointments being made, I was confused. I thought, what if I had been given the tourism docket? The average age of a tourist in country is about 60 years. One of the things we do not have is a very aggressive campaign to have young tourists. I have a secret held in my heart on how Kenya can actually be hosting 5 million tourists per year. And if we had 5 million tourists per year, each spending just 1 million shillings, which is $10,000, which is what they spend. Most of them spend even $20,000 on a holiday. If each was to spend 1 million shillings, we would have in excess of 6 trillion shillings in this country every year, just coming from tourism. Before you tax anything, just money coming in, and we can host 5 million tourists. But what are we doing? What are we doing? We are only thinking about eating what is there and finishing everything on the plate and then complaining about the fact that the economy is not growing. So we need leaders who will come and say, wait a minute, we are here to bake the cake. I am looking at appointment to cabinet of people who will want to come with ingredients. I have come with unga, I have come with eggs, I have come with sugar. We've come to bake the cake. We've come to increase the size of the cake. What I'm seeing is a malady of people, a disaster, a catastrophe, a horrible thing. People who only wake up with eating in mind.
No country develops out of taxation, number one. Number two, one of the most important assets of a country is its people. Japan has nothing. It only has its people. Kenya took the right route since independence and invested in education heavily. We have extremely intelligent Kenyans, people who are capable of utilizing their heads to create and prosper this country. What they are lacking is an enabling environment that allows you, as Fanya Mambo, to use your brain creatively. We are, by the way, co-creators with God, and create the wealth and the comfort that we want. The other thing is inclusivity. That we get into power and believe, since I come from Mount Kenya, the only Kenyans who can think are from Mount Kenya. Since I come from Rift Valley, the only Kenyans who can think are from Rift Valley, and particularly my own Kalenjins. Now, this retrogressive, this primitive thought process, when we all know that our biggest investment has been in education, and we also understand that to create wealth, you need labor, you need brain capital. To create wealth, you need natural resources. And the capital that you require is actually the seed capital to get things moving. A country like Kenya, I've just come from DRC, where we signed an agreement to quantify their carbon assets in DRC. After we quantify their carbon assets, of course, it's an asset.
Yes.
Just like when you have a debt, if the business you are doing cannot pay the debt, you decide, I'll sell this asset to pay the debt.
Yes.
Carbon assets is clean air. It is sovereign. The sinking of carbon in Kenya is being done by people's funds, is being done by our forests, is being done by our waterways, is being done by our grasslands. It is a sovereign asset. That's what we are signing in DRC. DRC intends to use its sovereign assets called carbon assets to raise capital, to build infrastructure, to raise capital, to enhance the well-being of the environment. Here in Kenya, 8.8% is forest cover. We have massive grasslands, we have massive waterways. What is happening to our carbon assets? Because to me, if that was quantified, you will use it as an asset to pledge and take money even before you sell it and pay off this debt. Then the issue of taxation doesn't arise. You will remain with money, which is seed capital, for you then to look at our other natural resources and see, where do I invest this to create employment, to utilize the assets that I have, including brain capital that we have, instead of talking about exporting them. And with that, Uhuru had done a geophysical survey of this republic. And I'm sure this report was handed over to William Ruto. If we used the seed capital we can generate from our carbon assets, and we able to exploit these resources and create employment and create wealth and reduce taxation because you have expanded the tax base. For instance, you come up and tell Kenyans, I'm coming up with a hustler fund. 50 billion shillings, you are throwing 500 shillings at everybody. 50 billion shillings could turn approximately 5,000 artisan miners in this country into middle or medium mining companies. You have expanded your tax base. And if you're investing in these people, you could equally share, other than taxing what they are doing. So it is not about creating employment, creating wealth, ensuring the country is comfortable and growing that is a problem. The problem, to me, is the intention of those that we elect into leadership. Do they look at a government as an opportunity to create yourself a name that will be remembered forever, or are they looking at it as the easiest way to grab people's taxes and put in their pockets? To me, my judgment is the problem is us Kenyans, that we do not take time to think about the people who are giving opportunities to lead us. The problem with us is Kenyans. We like lies. And the problem is with us Kenyans. We like going with mob psychology. When people think, when one of them stands out and tells, Uhuru told you, I told you, that there's a problem we're going to have with the government you're electing in place. But they chose to label us at Pangwingwi, or Muko na roho mbaya. What has changed for genuinely Kenyans who aspire to have a progressive, a prosperous state where everybody has money in their pockets to spend, where life is affordable, where the good things of this life can be enjoyed by every Kenyan? Because we have the potential to do that. Because all of us are struggling to make sure that we enjoy life. What has changed? That next election, Kenyans are going to pick on people who have the capacity to think, and the people who are looking for greatness and not looking at government as business. What has changed?
Thank you. I will start with the last question. What has changed? Congratulations to President William Samoei Arap Ruto. Because for the first time, you will make sure that middle class are going to vote. You know, the middle class was my car, not going to polling station. Oh my God, that is not for me. They don't even participate in nominations. But the taxation regime of William Samoei Ruto has hit the middle class so hard. And for the first time, they are going to vote. In fact, when you go to the polling stations, the first people you will find there is not these people who usually participate in nominations, who you call watu wa soko mamambogo. The first people who will vote in this next election will be middle class. Secondly, the Gen Zs you saw. The police would ask them, when in Nani? They would respond in English. Those are not people who are going to vote for you because you told them you'll give them hustler fund.
No.
They will vote for you for something intrinsically deeper than that. So that's a good thing. That is what has changed. This taxation may look like a bad thing, but we thank God it came. Because for the first time, it has made the middle class to wake up. And they want to vote. And for sure, they will vote. Those who have not been voting and saying, si wale watatuchagulia. Now those ones are the ones who are going to be the first ones to vote. When you talk about the carbon assets, to the common mwananchi, it's a very complex issue. But all I'll tell them is, carbon assets are conversations you get when you stop voting for a guy who cannot pronounce the word bursary somewhere here in Kiambu, I don't want to mention the constituency, and start voting now a brain like Jirongos and a few other people who are thinking like that. These conversations, if you went to parliament and you told certain MPs, especially from Mount Kenya, about carbon assets, and you told them, you have a microphone, tell us for 3 minutes what is carbon assets and how they are going to help this country. Even with the help of Google, just tell them to read, and then tell them, now put down, tell us what you've read about carbon assets. They would have no idea what they're talking about. So fellow Kenyans, this is a very good chance for us to start first choosing the right leaders. Because it is, I saw one day an MP from, they call her Bensouda in parliament, and people were discussing affordable housing. And Bensouda came and spoke in a lot of English and said how this project is not sustainable, it does not bring about sustainable development, it has not been checked in terms of its effect to the environment. And I could see some Mount Kenya MPs, not all, some Mount Kenya MPs na munawajua looking at Bensouda like this. And then when she was done talking, they said, put the question, we want to vote. Put the question, Mr. Speaker. So the question was put. And the next thing they asked, the leader of majority, how are we voting? And they were told, we are voting yes for the housing thing. And they voted yes. Now, if those are the leaders you are going to select or vote for, then you have a big problem as a country. My submission is start voting for leaders who, when there's a conversation about carbon credits, about global warming, about coming up with innovative ideas for a country to make money, not from taxation. I have always held dear very good ideas, and I'll only mention one which we have had a conversation about on these stations before. The simple idea of saying that every child must eat an egg in Kenya. Every school-going child must eat an egg, and if a child doesn't eat an egg, we are going to punish the headmaster. You know there are more than 10 million children who are going to school. So if each child eats an egg, we need 10 million eggs every day. Every day. 10 million eggs is an agrarian revolution. It's a revolution in agriculture. Because then you need about 15 million birds. Writing at 75%, you need 15 million birds. Veterinary doctors, you need immunization for those birds. You need feeds for those 15 million birds. To carry food that will give us 10 million eggs per day, you need a revolution in transport. The number of canters that will come on the road just because of that government policy of every child must eat an egg a day, a boiled egg, the number of canters that must carry animal feeds will be very many. And so it will have the ripple effect of even you need accountants to start accounting in the school for how many eggs are bought, how many. Just by saying as a country, and what is the net effect? Healthier children. Healthier children. Then the next time you say every child must eat a fruit, I don't care whether it's a pawpaw or a mango, and it must not be imported. Must eat a fruit, and it must come from Kenya. Those two declarations, and then you send a government inspector to make sure that every child is eating, and how much is an egg, surely? Every parent ambu ongeza 10 shillings or 15 shillings so that your child can eat an egg. And then the fruit in season, you can buy melon and cut into pieces. We don't care, but every child must eat a fruit, and every child in a government school must eat an egg. That is a whole agriculture revolution. It will create so many jobs for farmers. It will create so many opportunities for drivers. You know, even border riders to just carry those eggs for the specific school there. That alone can change this country.
We all know that even in the concluded Olympics, we only thrive in athletics. Why? Because our children don't have basketball courts from primary. They don't have swimming pools in school. They don't have gyms. They don't have trainers. They don't have so many things. We've got a lot that we need to do in this country to catch up with the rest of the world. But as you put it, it is in the hands of Kenyans. It's all in their hands. Who are you leading? Who are you choosing as a leader? Have you examined that councillor or MCA you want to vote for? Have you critically examined that person you want to vote for as a member of parliament? A governor, what is his intention? What is he looking for? Is he looking for an opportunity to get his hands into your taxes? Or is he looking for an opportunity to be a great man or a great woman or a great young lady, a great young man, to be remembered by history as somebody who was a co-creator with God. Because I believe the really basic reason we are here as human beings is to create. And the more you create, the happier you feel. You put it correctly. There are so many people who will not understand very basic things that can create the seed capital that we seriously require to clear our debt, to start serious development. We have Kenya Industrial Estate, which requires serious funding to fund the artisan miners, the artisan business people, the people in Juakali, to turn them into industries, to create employment. Yet, our focus is on the wrong thing. Mzee Kibaki came up with a clear vision for this country and said, if we opened up the Northern Corridor, Lapset, it will be even bigger than the corridor we have relied on since independence. Because the economic activities of this republic is around the corridor from Mombasa to Malaba,
Yes.
along the old railway line. Can we create another corridor? Nobody is working at it. Why? Because there is no money to make. So can we look at the intention of the people we are voting for? I want you to make your final remarks, and I want us to have an opportunity to discuss even more. For me, I'll contribute for you to be the leader of opposition.
Thank you very
so
much.
So that we have somebody who is willing to spend his time to fill this very, very important
void
that has been through abduction of responsibility by a party that very many people believed in, and now that it's been destroyed, and now its leadership seems to be compromised, and that they are no longer opposition. But you give them a name, they are not opposition, they are what?
They are amphibians.
You said another one,
Yeah?
the one of
Oh, they are siphon, they are siphonization.
So
Siphonization.
Siphonization.
They are siphoning.
They are siphoning instead of opposition.
Yes. Thank you very much. On the Olympics, I'll only say two sentences. The first sentence is very simple. I mean, we've been relying on talent. You go run on the hills, and then you come, you have talent, you go run on our behalf. If you win, sawa. If you don't win, it's okay. We lose nothing as long as a delegation accompanied you of more government officials than the people running on the track. The other countries are relying on sports science. They pick someone, they see talent, they invest so much in that talent. They refine it. Our people sometimes even just run barefoot. You know, you've just come from the bush. We're just relying on talent. I'm telling you, if we took talent and polished it and made it now a skill, because skill is polished talent, Kenya would go very far.
Very, very
Let us think very seriously about it. I was telling someone the other day, go to Kambani, and some of these people just take an arrow and aim at a bird and it's on the ground.
And it's on the ground.
And there's archery happening at Olympics. And you can see the white people struggling so much to aim. Just come to Kambani. We'll take all the gold for archery. I mean, I have looked at what is happening in Kisumu. We have shot put experts. People pick a stone bigger and heavier than what is thrown as shot put at all. And you know, sometimes when it's arriving at the destination during Maandamano, it comes at 8 stones.
Yes.
How it splits in the air, God knows. So those are the people we need to be saying, wait a minute. Before you went to Olympics, you were already throwing stones very well.
Yeah.
What can we do with this? So that our diversity becomes a source. I mean, look at the Maasai. I have seen Yego trying to throw the spear. You should see how far the Maasais throw the spear. I have a feeling it would go outside of that stadium. Maybe that's why we don't involve them. But this is the high time we start saying, wait, what does our diversity portend for the Olympics? Those people do high jump. I lived in Magadi for some time. And naturally you see the boys putting a stick and they jump so naturally as they sing. And you see how they do for long jump and you're like, wait a minute, this is such raw talent. But our ministers are busy taking trips to wherever these things are happening instead of taking trips to where these things are coming from. Finally, I would like to say I'm very serious about offering myself to be leader of opposition in this country, and I will say it on every platform I have. I am ready to. I have done this on TV for a very long time, with nobody's income, nobody's salary. I'm not saying I'm a rich young man, no, but I do it as a sacrifice. If you people are serious, you don't have opposition. I am serious to offer myself. I just need to know this is the office I report to, and I want you to bring in. I'm not afraid to just bring anything that you think should be disclosed. And I will, the leader of, and I will say right there, self-appointed. official leader of opposition, and I'll put a pay bill. Kenyans will throw 10 shillings, 20 shillings. That will be my fuel every day. But there has to be someone speaking. And we shall not wait until the next election for someone to speak. God has given me a voice. God has given me charisma. And I'm available, and I'm young, and I have the strength. So just make sure that you have a leader of official position, and here I am. I am ready to start tomorrow morning.
Thank you so much. Maybe I'll join you as a co-opposition leader
Yes.
shortly.
Yeah.
Because really it's our country.
Yes.
And if there's a role we must play, and if we must make sure that this country is moving to the next stage, let us do it.
Yes.
I'm available, you are available. There are many other Kenyans who are available. It is high time we started thinking as a country.
Yes.
The young people have shown us the old politics we've done really means nothing to us. We are the majority. So let's provide leadership by, first of all, ensuring there is opposition despite our opposition having collapsed.
Yes.
And let's start with you and the rest of us who are willing to join you.
Yes.
To make sure that we are working as a team to create checks and balances in our country. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much.
Be blessed.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you.
I'm happy to have been here. It's an honor.
My pleasure.
Thank you.
Savage quality.